welcome to Impossible Live. Welcome back if you are joining us today and you are in for a very special pre-recorded treat. Now, if you were here for our June pre-recording, I can promise you, because of the amazing energy in leadership, the circular workplace, StreamYard will not have a technology issue today. So we are crossing our fingers and our toes across the miles to make sure that doesn't happen. And I want to welcome you to Impossible Live. Welcome back if you're joining us again. And I am delighted to let you know we have an extra special guest for you today. I had the pleasure of meeting this wonderful woman. And if you're watching us on LinkedIn, in the old LinkedIn audio days, in an amazing room run by Martin Stark or Roy Kowarski, I met this brilliant woman in chat. And when I went and checked out her profile on LinkedIn, I said, ooh, we have got to hang out. Not just because of my love for learning and development, but this woman is absolutely brilliant, and I am honored she is joining us today. Allie, welcome. Welcome to Impossible Live. For those who haven't met you yet and don't know your magic,
you want me to
please
tell
let them know
magic?
more about you.
Awesome. Hey, thank you, Melanie, and welcome to everyone. And we are covering some miles today. Melanie, you're on the East Coast of the US, yeah? I'm in a little island called Tasmania, off the mainland of Australia. So that little, triangle that you see at the bottom of mainland Australia, that is the wild land that is Tasmania. And yeah, it's great to be here. Where do we start? I've dedicated the last 18 years of my life and career to really challenging and creating an alternative, a positive alternative to how we've seen the development of people and business together, and how we actually allow people to fight smart. So for me, I started really working in quite marginalised areas and delivered outcomes and impacts that were not really seen, and it caught the wind of, corporate and government, and it just expanded. And last year, it was really the galvanising of all the wisdom and the lessons and the odd, mistake and that came together in creating a new approach that leaders and teams can own, called the circular workplace. So the beauty of my work is that it's really the people own it. I come in and facilitate it and deliver it, but they continue to, and we'll talk about it later, but they continue to own that experience and evolve it. And I think the reason, or the why behind that, is that organisations are spending a lot of money on bringing in external experts again and again to fix problems and challenges that can be solved by people when they have the resources, the resources, the relationships, the conditions and the environment to own that themselves. And that's been one of the most satisfying parts of this work. So that's putting my 18 years in a nice, neat box to start this conversation.
Woo, what a beautiful, beautiful box to unwrap and play with.
Hey, I've been doing a lot of thinking about this, right? This has been a lot of refinement. This is not
that's
super easy to get to, right? But it's been a trip.
I have a love for games and puzzles. Probably started as a child, and I think one of the things as it continues as an adult, as you would say, is working with people across cultures, across generations, identities, and across genders, and really across the globe. It's a stretch, and I love what you're saying, because you're really reminding us of the heavy lifting part.
Mm-hmm.
It's a much lighter load if we share it, if we redistribute the weight a little bit. And one of the things I loved as part of preparing today was really remembering how much I fell in love with Allie's content when I saw it, and trying to figure out why. In our conversations, in your amazing posts, I recognize and I appreciate all the care you take to measure things through a unique eye, which is one of the reasons why I loved the circular workplace as a title for today, because how we measure things, how we're looking at the angles or the perspectives, and really in some cases, like you're saying, things don't change because the realities don't change
Mhm.
in certain cultures. But I love, especially love, in your recent post, you wrote about ROS, return on skills. Tell us
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, so I've done some, when people go and follow me, and please do connect in and engage and explore what I'm working on and what I'm creating. What we found, so you always know about ROI, right? So return on investment. But return on skills is different again, right? Because it's looking at the nuance and the context. And I've really written some deep articles around this, so there'll be more time for you to explore that as you want. But return on skills is looking at, and as you and I just said in the lead up to this conversation, it's a very different way of measuring what is valuable as well. Yeah. So return on skills is saying, okay, the outcomes, they tend to be easier, right? Like we can tend to measure those. They're your KPIs against individual roles and the team and department goals. But everyone has always had the belief that it's harder to measure impact. Right? And I'm going to talk about some of the specific impacts that obviously that comes under ROS and that I've written. But it's actually not, right? Like with anything in life, Melanie, when you know how, when you can learn different, you can do different, right? So for me, it's not when you start with a very clear intent and motive, right? Like what is the person? So here, let's just come back for a minute. So Roz is not just interested in technical skills and how those skills are going to be used. Yeah. It's interested also in the style and the manner in how people are going to use, how they're going to show up in their role. So, for example, right, there's a lot of impacts that we measure, and I'm going to give you a bit of a taste. So Roz measures things like language and words. So how does our language and words change over time? How do our relationships change? Are we rewiring existing ones? Are we creating new ones? How are we showing up? What's the quality of what we're producing in terms of the style and manner? How open-minded, this is a big one, how open-minded are we to new opportunities, right? You can measure all of this because you're setting action against it, right? So we're creating an approach that is very experimental and very action-based. So that is how we can measure this, right? In the nature and the way that we're engaging the learner and individual. We're also looking at willingness to be open-minded to new opportunities, yeah? So are people willing, and I've seen this, Melanie, I've worked very intimately over many, many months, not for a half an hour workshop, but very intimately with over 2,000 people. You learn a lot about humans in that time, right? And you see the trends. Everyone's different, it's all personalised, but you start to see things. And we're measuring people's willingness to take opportunities that they wouldn't have prior, those stretch opportunities, yeah, how open-minded they are. We're also measuring people's ability in terms of diversity intelligence. So how are they actually responding to gaps, threats and risk, and what is their capability and capacity to create new opportunity from that? So I've given you, like I said, it's not the only way, but there's some of the key ways that we are actually measuring more around the character, the style, the nature, the nuance of the person, yeah, not merely the technical side. And that is when we start to develop the whole person. It is a holistic approach to measurement. And that's one of its very reasons for working. And the beauty is the individual works with myself and their leaders to design those, right? And so it connects right back into the role in the project that we are delivering. It doesn't sit out there. So much disconnect. This is about joining those dots across those levels.
Oh wow. I am woo falling in love. And you're gonna love it because the minute the recording goes, you're gonna see all the lovely hearts and emojis pop up.
Ah,
A couple of things. I look at, as you would say, being certified in trust now and certified in Trust Styles Index and
mm,
as a trusted leader certification. And The most recent one, which, oh, by the time we air, fingers crossed, Advanced Trust Facilitator certification. And I think that last one has been the most complex because of working with my team and working with other teams and trying, as you would say, to incorporate some of the personalized parts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, I think, like you would say, we miss the ahas.
Yeah, yeah.
We miss the little wins that sometimes aren't measured because of how differently people look, as you would say, at the word impact. What I love is your invitation in your newsletter, the experiment, because I am a woo, let's put all the ingredients together, or the ones that you want to bring to the table. Let's figure
Yeah,
out the
yeah, for
rest.
that monthly roundup. So we do a big deep dive every week, and then you're right, and that's not easy, right? When you're creating nearly every day, and then you've got to curate it, that monthly taste, that monthly menu, and then
But
yeah,
the
yeah.
process of inviting more people to the table
Mm,
so that we're really examining the different ingredients, the different skill sets, the different ideas. Sometimes innovation or ideas are kind of squashed,
yeah,
without people even realizing it because someone hasn't shared their voice. So I love
yeah,
what you're saying about the combination of the personalization, but really getting kind of everybody in the room and everybody in the mix. Because I think sometimes that's what happens in some experiments. They're on a select group. We used to have the feasibility studies, or we'd look by department, and then you'd look into department, then they look at different levels of leaders. One of my clients, and I love working with them, they cultivate emerging leaders as well
mm.
as current leaders. So having a vision is towards the future, towards a succession plan, because otherwise there's a vacuum when the knowledge base changes.
Look, Melanie, so much in that. I want to say a couple of things if I can, just in response to that. There is no succession plan if there's no learning and development, continuous cultures, process, foundations to launch from, right? So a lot of people talk about succession planning, but the L&D and how, in terms of how it's delivered, lived, designed, experienced, is extremely fractured. So that's the first thing I want to say around, right? They are intrinsically linked. The second point that you really said that is incredibly relevant at the moment is I just want to let people know because LinkedIn, I think, didn't send all the invites out. And I did something silly because I sent it out the 4th of July. Okay. But I've set up a new group. And this is for anyone at any stage of their career. It's on LinkedIn. You'll find it at the bottom of any recent post. And I can send the link and put it out there. For people that really want L&D to be a strategic driver for business, to come in and have conversations that we're not getting elsewhere. And I was asked, and I'm going to be honest, I won't name the other organisation, to set up an affinity group for this particular organisation, and I thought long and hard and declined not to. The reason is that I want to come under my own brand. It will be small but mighty to begin with. I wanted to create a more intimate, a more truthful, a more real environment. It wasn't going to be hampered by corporate sponsorship, and layers of other incentive and agenda, and create something that I know is needed that people will help me shape. So I will send the link, Melanie. I'd love people to join us, get engaged, get involved, send questions. I set up some really clear reasons why we're here. But to be a true sounding board and bring solutions to some of our more pressing issues as an industry and as a society, I suppose, too, as part of that. So I just wanted to touch on that.
Woo, celebrating.
Celebrate it. This is not just if you're sitting in a group and if you're in with the leadership group and whatever, right? I'm not interested in that. So I've made a stand and I'm making it accessible because there's just elements of what's out there at the moment that are not, right? So I'm up for it. So I'd encourage people to come join me too if they're ready for a different conversation and different experience around that. So here's cheers to that. I'll have some water on that, mate.
That is fabulous. I love what you said too about the layers of agendas, because I think
Oh,
sometimes from a leadership perspective, sometimes it's your executives who are setting the agendas, while others are doing some of the table setting around the table. But I love the invitation of what you're saying to kind of do a deep dive. So I'm a
Yes.
lab girl without having any mad scientific skills, but that part about the recipes and being able to break things down in really small pieces. And one of the reasons for that is the conversations about trust, as you're saying, and I appreciate it from my mission around offering people an invitation to cultivate trust so they can
Mm,
ignite trust is that we need to have the intimacy. And
mm,
sometimes, in leadership, vulnerability can be scary. Transparency can be scary from our neurodiverse perspectives. And I have to remember that when Yvette Bethel of Organizational Soul, when she caught my attention at a Not More Than EQ conference, really about 4 years ago,
mhm,
what really caught my eye was when she said trust is an emotion. What I love is
mm,
in your definition of the circular workplace, in
mm,
the discussion or invitation about the soft skills,
mm,
uh, not just the numbers, because I think it's easy sometimes. I was a finance major, and it's easy sometimes to just measure return on investment. And I was laughing with Ali because I can't wait to come to Australia in her little pocket. I'll make sure we get there because I
They'll be
think it's
seeing you
really
beforehand, Melanie, I think.
that would be fabulous. I think I've always thought of RU, return on opportunities and
Mm,
objectives, because sometimes in the workplace, we're most interested in opportunities. Sometimes from a solution perspective, that curiosity about an opportunity. But from the high end of leadership and uh, sometimes goals or core values or the foundational part, there's such an emphasis on the objectives, and everybody doesn't always understand them. I had a wonderful conversation earlier with somebody I also met through Roy's disruptive business leadership panel, and Daniel and I had an amazing conversation earlier today, and I appreciate it because we spoke about the difference of perspectives. I was able to speak
mm,
about being in an environment where I was an employee in a culture where my employer didn't want to hear a variety of voices. And I think sometimes too in there, besides the exploration, like you said, we really need the willingness, the curiosity to kind of show up and care so that when we're sitting around the table, there's an energy or there's a flow that really fills that circle. One of the things I love is one of the positive intelligence coaches I had met a while ago, who's an energy healer. She talked about setting up circles. So it's almost the conversation happens, and there can be an inner circle and there's an outer circle. And maybe the inner circle is more active. Maybe it's more of your extroverts, the louder, squeakier voices. And that when there's a pause, somebody in the outer circle might tap someone who's not speaking and ask them to give up their seat so that
mm,
their voice can be heard. Because I think one of the challenges, like you were saying, especially in intimate environments, there's a time constraint.
mhm,
Sometimes in certain organizations, there's a financial constraint. I'm looking forward shortly to going to visit a client who I've only worked with virtually, and they work in a hybrid environment. And we're about to attend an event. I'm so excited to go and meet them in person. But I think because of it, I love your definition of a circle
mm.
and and the invitation to be part of a circle, not a square, not a box, not sitting in the corner, not out in the balcony.
Oh, it's interesting how you, and thank you, Melanie, for picking up on that, because that's a different way of thinking about it too, right? So when I originally designed the approach, I was inspired by the circular economy and the premise of that, right? That when you look at a circular economy, it is about repurposing, not wasting, finding new ways, yeah, to take something, reshape it, bend it, mold it, and bring it back to new life. And I saw that in a way that we can do that with skills, lessons learned, mistakes, near misses. and over time compounding wisdom, right? Like, if you think about it, so much waste and wasted opportunity comes from a traditional method of learning where the learning, the skill sits with the individual. It's rarely captured in a way that's got value beyond the individual and back into the bigger business. And I thought, it just makes no sense. It makes no sense for the individual. It makes no sense for the business. So let's look at the way in which we can, as you said, the people own it, right? They own it so that it never falls out. We have these learning loops that I refer to, yeah, where organisations have them and don't plug them. They don't plug the hole. So what tends to happen, the intel, the opportunities just fall out. It's like a bucket. Yeah, think about this leaky bucket with all that intel, all the over time, the experiences, the wisdom, the insight, and it doesn't land in it.
See, I think of it when you're mentioning that it evaporates sometimes.
Yeah, beautiful. Absolutely.
Like
100%. 100%. And that's a great way of looking at it. We talk about organisational memory. So organisational memory is everything I've just spoken about. So it's organisational memory relates to the experiences that we've had, the conversations that we've had, the observations that we've made, the intel that we've gathered. But there is nothing until here that is really allowing us to capture that. So 100%, that's a great way of looking at it. It evaporates. And so then we're at risk of making the same mistakes again. The person leaves, they retire, they may pass unexpectedly. And then it's this mad panic because we never had a means to capture that prior and do good with it. And that is the key motivation behind this, so that organisations have a solution to that.
So I love that the invitation of what you just said, because there's a vehicle, and there are vehicles in there to capture the wisdom, as you said. And I love that what you said about compounding the wisdom, because if you can capture it, you can combine it with new ingredients in a new experiment.
Correct. So that's exactly right. Yeah. So it keeps changing and evolving as the business and the people and the world around them and the circumstances in which they need to do and grow, and that evolves. So this is not set and forget. Once they have that ability, the environment, the conditions, the process, the systems, when they get it, they take, like you said, the different ingredients, different mixing, different blend. That's the beauty of this. That's the value of it. And I've always said, don't come back to me again. You're never going to see me again for the same thing. I'm one show only, right? That's how it's set up, and that's how it works. That's the value. That's the difference of it.
There's an invitation in what you're saying to do something I have always called elevate your blend. It's a chance to rise. It's a chance to change the mix a little, add a little seasoning, add a little spice. But I love what you're saying about that, and you'll laugh because the teacher's kid, the pen is moving, and I'm truly enjoying that. It's going to be a pre-recording because boy, I can rewatch.
I'm back.
Re-air and now Allie's coming back. I can already tell you that. But I love what you're saying about the part about organizations having a memory. I'm on a board directors for almost 16 years now of Fearless Hudson Valley, Inc., intimate partner violence, teen dating violence, human trafficking. So really wide range. What I love about your reach and really about what you're talking about in terms of return on skills is it's something that can apply to people who are working across shifts, across different cultures, in hybrid environments, in person. I'm not going to forget that ROS easily. We'll end up. You think I'm joking? We'll have Ollie back. We'll talk about return on skills and.
Well, we need to, because it's such a big topic on its own. Mm-hmm. Yeah? Such a big topic. So I'm back to that. The other thing I just want to state is that this has been, elements. Like I said, this crystallised last year, but the elements are largely what has been happening over the last 18 years. And since 2017, Melanie, I've been facilitating remotely, well before COVID. because I did a lot of work in Outback Australia, all over the country. It's a country that's so big that you just can't fly everywhere because it's, not always viable economically and, for other reasons. So this has been tested and had the heat put on it in some complex, isolated environments, right? And just to your point, if I can say this, that as we live and work differently, we need to look at the ways in which we're creating these connections. We must look at the way that we're creating meaning in our work, the way that we're rewiring relationships, creating new ones. And I love this. I'm excited by this because it's not bound by zip code, as you say in the US, right? This is boundaryless, and it needs to be. And the other thing is too, it's tackling something that is so massive that I see in L&D, and that is fairness and equity. Fairness and equity. L&D's got a massive issue. I'm going to call it out. I'm going to call it the elephant in the room while the sun comes across. I hope you won't be taken out by that. But there is a massive issue of fairness and equity. We have a leadership bottleneck where so much focus is at the leadership level. This is not about leaders. This is leaders and teams. This is crossroads, cross purposes, you know what I mean? Cross functions, cross teams. The leaders will obviously learn through working with a facilitation, a coaching and a mentoring component, but this does not begin and end with leaders. I think that's critical. And I get a little bit scratchy when I just see constant focus on platforms like LinkedIn around leadership development. Yeah, there's a part for leaders, but we need a colonic irrigation. We need to clear the pipes. Yeah. We must clear the organisational pipes, Melanie. I'm very passionate about this. I'm going to try and behave myself, maybe. But we must clear that. Otherwise, we do an injustice to our people. We'll never reach the organisational ambition or vision because it's spinning plates, right? You've got to be able to spin a number of different plates. And while you're over there focusing all about your leaders, what do you think's happening? What's going on out there?
I still think sometimes that part of the crossroads is as we approach the intersections. 9 times out of 10, the person who arrived at the stop sign doesn't proceed first. Or the person at the yield sign, the leader proceeds first. Someone then has an opportunity to follow in their footsteps. Unless, as many, and I really appreciate the invitation recently, to be a conscious leader. Mm-hmm. Because I think the crossroads, as you're saying, the consciousness of those intersections, and I've always, I'm grateful for lots of military gentlemen and ladies in our family from the military, but particularly our Air Force guys. So always think of the sky and the trajectory of how you're approaching an intersection, or you have those little signs in the airport, and we have the air traffic controllers to think of the different places that the traffic is evolving from. I think the word fair occasionally could possibly, in some circles, some cultures, some environments, be replaced with the word flourish. And that the word equity, which really scares some because they're looking for a level playing field. I think maybe from an energy perspective, from ROE, returns on energies and engagement, that there are waves and we have a choice. It's just like watching those amazing surfers in the Olympics. And I fell in love with, there was like a cross kayak event in the last Olympics. I cannot wait to see that again. I wish, we were just watching the angles and people having to flip and just navigate. But I think those who control the pathways, and it's one of the things that I appreciate learning from the lens of the board that I'm on, they may determine the width of the path. And I'd prefer to think of it as an airwave, because we got to be able to breathe through this stuff.
Correct, Melanie. And can I just come back and say for me, equity is not the same as equality. So we have equality. Equity, my understanding and definition, is that an understanding and respect that we all don't start from the same place. So equity is we all don't start, an acknowledgement that we don't all start from the same place.
What happens with those who don't want to acknowledge that part?
That is. I've seen that, right? I've actually been in a contract with that. That's a whole nother conversation, yeah. And I think what's happening is, and I will say this, is there must be a level of leadership ownership in this too, right? Like who's keeping who honest in this? And I think it comes down to, again, another topic for another day if you wish to go there. But I really think we need to be looking at who we're hiring. What are we basing our recruitment decisions on too, right? Like, what are people fearful of? And I think this is also, I just want to say, and I don't want to deviate, but generosity is critical to this approach working.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Generosity.
See, I love the invitation when we were talking about equity and that people don't always acknowledge starting from the same place. But if with generosity, we were able to find something positive in others' origins or something positive in the steps that they're taking towards a different level, towards a different blend. I think I'm a feed forward girl as opposed to a feedback when we talked about hiring.
100%.
How can you tie it into an individual's goals or objectives or dreams? And do we give space?
And that's at leadership level too, isn't it, right? Like that's understanding what's the motivation, the incentive, the vision for them as well too, right? Like how do we find the connection? And I think that's a great point, yeah? And because I've worked with people that have been resistant to giving up maybe some of the, I don't like 10 pounds, but maybe some of that or working in different ways, right? Like that's a process and you've got to be skilled in being able to do that. But I like the idea of, as I said, and I'm very much, we need the space and time to understand what is behind that hesitation as well, right? Because we can't craft a way forward if we're not making what I like to call more space for light. That's having, we call it here in Australia truth telling. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done for us to be able to get to that first. And trust is obviously a critical element of that. But yeah, I think it's an education. It's an education across all ways, all levels as well. Yeah.
I think sometimes too, like you're saying though, I think there's a fear and a general one, and maybe I've been hanging around with Martin Stark, the courage champion, a bit long, is I think there's a concern about words that start with EQ.
Yeah.
And I thought about it, like some, we used to think of pre as a beginning word until people started sharing language or words. And you had mentioned this before about the language you use, until people started mentioning words like prevention, and that sometimes in the origin of the word, maybe it's the root, and maybe it's just because I'm a daughter of a scholar who always loves to remind me of Latin derivatives, and mom watches Jeopardy, and she's tapping into something because of Latin. But I think the part that you're really saying, and I love it in our discussion about the circular workplace, is the importance of the origins, whether it's the starting point, whether it's the movement, whether it's. And I think I love that part of your invitation to look at equity from a different perspective.
Yeah.
Because we don't always share our origins. We don't always think they're welcome. On some forms, there aren't boxes or options. I laugh all the time on LinkedIn that there are polls, and I'm always looking for that fifth option other. I see 4 choices and people are like, explain below. And I'm like, do you want me to talk about each individual point? Well, I could put a chat about, and I appreciate it, the reminder to slow down sometimes in the origins. Because sometimes we really have the invitation or the internal pressure to speed up because someone's looking for a solution.
Correct. And I always say not all types are slow and negative. So when I think about slow, I think about intentional, strategic, considered, conscious. So if we don't do that work and have that dialogue early, we are on very shaky ground moving forward, right? This approach in my relationships and work have always been based on understanding one another, making space for story, and understanding of origin, which I love the way you say that. And really, because this is not base level work. This is not simple training, right? I am coming from a very truthful part too, right? I am vulnerable in this too, Melanie. This is an experience, right? Sorry, the sun's about to come through again. But this is very much about, we must understand one another. We must have a knowledge. We must know each other beyond the title. We must know each other, right? We must know each other beyond the title. And we're not. And so when people say to me, they want me on, podcasts to talk about scaling this, scaling that. Not everything needs to be scaled, man. You know what I mean? Not everything needs to be scaled within an inch of its life. Why? I mean, I'm going to go on one, and I think I'm going to ask them, why? Why do we need to scale everything, right? Like, that shows a real misunderstanding of what we're doing here, and what we're valuing, right?
Oh, my gosh. Ali, you're amazing at flipping this.
Well, the sun's about to come across and
you look beautiful.
I'll be grateful to the sun.
I know it was rainy before, but I'm blessed because I'm preparing presentations on creating connections to cultivate trust and scale. I used to talk about the scaling first, and the more I lean into the trust lane, I'm leaning into cultivate trust, because people are just looking like your beautiful website. They're looking at Kickstart. They're looking at Jumpstart. They're looking for ignition, light this up in a safe way. And leaders especially, whether it's lighting up pathways. But I really love, because you're reminding us that, like in the ATD world, the Association of Talent Development, the talent part is a critical part of the development, and the association part. If we don't create communities that look at this from a different angle, because I'm really looking forward to seeing that amazing intimate container that you spoke about, because I think we need the invitation to be in spaces that are more than psychologically safe, and that our conversations about the origins. I've been writing a bunch of bios lately, and I started laughing from an increase in the number of presentations and networking events that I've been attending at a really rapid rate without intending to all the time. I'm starting to introduce myself as a girl from the Bronx. And I'm mentioning the Bronx because I'm a New York City girl. And people are like, oh, you live upstate. You're a country girl. You're this, you're that. I think from our origins, from saying a girl from the Bronx, I am meeting the most amazing people who are sharing rich, wonderful stories. They're reminding me of my pop and my pop's legacy, as a Brooklyn boy. And I think sometimes we forget that beginning part of the story. Personally, professionally.
Yeah.
Like it's not even a laundry list, but I really love your invitation to keep it circular, keep it part of the circle.
Intimate. Keep it also too, something that I'll do as part of this as well, and it's genuine, but it's done with intent, is that I always facilitate in a space that is quite indulgent, so lovely coffee or tea, or like, people aren't never treated. We don't treat people well. You know what I mean? We don't indulge them. We don't create those spaces where people normally get crappy something to drink, and it's all it's very, very transactional. And I'm saying no. I'm in the art of obviously creating the outcomes and the impact, but an experience for people, right? So I'll say, what do you want? Let get a coffee, get a hot chocolate, get a tea, get this. And they're like, oh, I never get this. It's not. And I also say I never had to think until I worked with you either. And I said, well, welcome to your new world, right? Like, I'll give you some coffee and then we'll start working on the brain and getting you to really step up. But it's a holistic experience that makes space and time. And anyone that's done anything of value in this space that has been life-changing, and I don't use that lightly, but, I keep in touch with people many years after the fact, so I know where they are and what's happened in that time. Indulgence is never really a word or a term that we associate with this space, yeah? But I do. And it means what it means to people. It means different things to different people. But it's personal, Melanie. Yes,
and it's also transformative. You're reminding me of conversations with
100%.
Phil Shapiro about we're working on a series of retreats and calling it Spaces to Emerge.
Yeah,
And
awesome.
I think also you're reminding me is one of the indulgences. Friends had invited us years ago to dinner. And after dinner, I really just wanted a cup of tea. And I love coffee, but I think I really just wanted a cup of tea. And the restaurant brought out a presentation, it's a steakhouse. I've never seen anything like it. First, my trivet appeared. Then my teapot appeared.
It's theatrical.
Then my cup with just like it looked like a soup bowl, and then they bought this amazing hand carved wooden case with illuminated glass, and they didn't realize I like stuff that lights up. I'm not a shiny object girl, but the tea, to select a tea, it was like you selected a ridged almost cylinder. I was just like, what a presentation. It's kind of like one of our favorite restaurants. The gentleman who brought the desserts, he was an opera singer and he would sing your choices and come sing happy birthday to you in the same spirit. But I think it added an element, besides indulgence, but an element of elegance.
Yes.
That we don't normally always share as we're nurturing or inviting people into spaces. And I love that you're bringing it into the workplace, not just into leadership.
100%. And that comes right back. Melanie, sorry to interrupt you. That comes back to what we said right at the beginning. It's not the technical delivery that actually matters and creates durable transformation. It's the style and the manner and the nuance, right? So a lot of people say, no, I really like this style. This is very different to what I thought in a positive way it was going to be. I never had to think until I met you. No one ever cared about my opinion until I worked with you. So these are some of the things I want to share as part of this. Is we are crafting something here. We are making something together, right? I am the facilitator. So I have, and leaders, facilitation is going to be one of the most important skill sets that we build in our leaders, is to facilitate new ideas, to move people through, to facilitate adversity intelligence. It's something that I've spent the last 18 years on, putting heat on and proving what that can do as well. Huge area. But facilitation, I say to people, I am here to facilitate the pathway. You will determine how you're going to use it.
Oh, Ali, you have no idea. As I'm working on the last phases of my advanced trust certification, facilitation, and I probably just mumble jumbled the words because facilitator, there's a magic there.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the environments we can create, in terms of the people who come into the spaces, in terms of the transformations they share. I had the pleasure today of reconnecting with someone who had referred me a wonderful client about 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And haven't been in touch probably in 8 or 9 years since she moved from the area. Today we reconnected at a different point of the circle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I love what you're saying because it's not just the invitation to participate, but it's in your name. There's a kick and a start, and it's a gentle kick. It's the reminder of, as you're saying, whether it's a call to action or I'm saying, hey, it's a call to connect. Whatever it is in the mix, these are beautiful things. Ali, other than your website, are there places at your website, your LinkedIn profile, your featured section, where would they find the information on the intimate group that you mentioned?
Yeah, so what I'll do, I will, Melanie, I'll send you an email with those details so we can put it in maybe the show notes as well too, because I can't remember the LinkedIn link, so to speak, but you'll find it on the bottom of recent posts. I always have different ways that you can connect back into the experiment, take a complimentary tour of the circular workplace, and join us in this community. So I'll send that to you so people can indulge themselves as they'd like to. But as you said, explore the website. We've just done some good updates around that. There's a lot of free resources. So I've done a lot of recordings that you can explore at your leisure. A lot of good blogs, a lot of other podcasts that you find online there. But come and join me. Connect in on LinkedIn, follow me. As you know, Melanie, you've been a great supporter of mine since early on, and I really appreciate that. Your son's coming again. There's something in that, maybe.
I know.
And no one does this alone, right? No one does this alone. And I have, I've got ambitions for good. And as I said, I just appreciate the time to be with you and your intelligent, insightful questions in your community as well too. So I look forward to coming back and continuing to support you in your work. And as I said, having the conversations and the sharing of the wisdom that we need, but don't always get. So thank you.
Thank you. But the sun's lighting on you to remind us that you're an angel on earth. And that's Melanie, the invitation. Reach out to this beautiful, wonderful woman whose posts, because we have 14-hour time difference. I'm reading her post in the middle of the night.
Oh, geez, Melanie, don't get some sleep,
Actually, but sometimes it helps stimulate the right, proper idea or framework.
Okay. To go back and have we're all different. That's the other thing. We all learn different. This is exciting. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for joining us. And for those who are popping in, check out all of Ollie's links on LinkedIn. You'll be able to check them also out when our recording ends up on YouTube. But let's support this beautiful woman in her radiant light as she's increasing fabulous communities to help circular workplaces, to help others kickstart, and to help everybody else flourish. We hope you have a magnificent day filled with opportunities and possibilities. Stay safe, stay well, stay inspired, and please, please stay in touch. Take great care. Thank you so much, Ollie.